ticket clients as you are.
Yes.
All right, looks like we're live. Uh, nice little nugget from Jason on the way in. Joey, how you doing, buddy? It's Thursday afternoon. Joey and Jason live.
Favorite time of the week, man.
Yeah, me too, man. And I'm pumped about this one. I mean, I think most people in our world are excited about sales, and I think you and I are no different. But it's nice once in a while to like reopen that book a little bit and kind of go into things that maybe sometimes you and I think are taken for granted, or maybe you and I just assume that people know, and kind of reopen the things up, because I think a lot of times when people initially go through the course, they get to this like MVP, this like minimum viable product, and then they kind of move on. So I like to once in a while kind of reopen it back up, and I know you do too. So today we're going to talk about kind of the difference between low ticket and high ticket sales, as well as kind of some key points on sales mastery. So Joey, why don't you kick it off for us? What do you kind of overarching? What do you view the difference in low ticket versus high ticket sales?
I actually think that high ticket's easier. It's an easier business to run. And so that's why I prefer it, simply because the complexity of running a business where you have 150 clients versus having 600 clients. Like, guys, I say this because I'm one of the few people that have been there, right? To have $1 million gym with low ticket or mid ticket, depends how you define it, clients, and then high ticket clients. And I'm telling you, like, I was at it took me about 700 members. That was my all-time high point. And these guys were paying, they were paying 35 after a discount per week. So we're looking at $199 a month, somewhere around there, probably. And to be honest with you, like, some of them would prepay to get 2 months free. So then if you average that out, they're probably at like $179 a month, something around there, right? And so to actually get to $1 million in revenue, which had always been one of my goals, right? And fast forward, my goals are net, right?
Yeah.
But then they were gross, right? And so I achieved that, right? I was able to achieve that in back-to-back years, and it was really cool. But it was very, very stressful for me to be able to manage that size of a business, right? Like, think about it. We had to have a lot more coaches. We had to have an operations manager. We had to have a retention manager, a whole different position that I don't even have right now. It was a 40-hour job, and their only job was retention. And if you guys have followed me for the last few years, if you really paid attention, I had developed the entire retention role in what they were doing those 40 hours. Right. And we don't even do any of that stuff because it's unnecessary when you have clients that are paying $300 a month and work with a coach. Right. Because it is very symbiotic. The coach, because this person is a higher ticket client, the coach assumes more ownership and responsibility over that client, and they handle the retention, right? There's no system to handle retentions, and I love systems, but if you can get, if there's one that's unnecessary that you can get rid of, right, then why wouldn't you do that, right? And so to me, when I made that realization, and high ticket clients are higher margin too, right? And it's because there's less operational complexity. Even if you are, and I'll try not to go too high level, but even if you are, if your gross profit, right, not your net, but even if your gross profit is the same, when there's less operational dollars, your net profit will by default be higher. And so it's just a much, much better type of client for the space that we're in. And then once you've identified that as being true, your only job is to figure out, okay, well, how do I acquire those clients? Right? I believe in everything that he's saying. Mathematically, it makes sense. Operationally, it makes sense. I want more money and I want more time, and I want less people at my gym to give me all of that. So how do I get them? Right? And then you enter the perfect gym model. And a big part of that becomes a sale, which is what we're talking about today.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of to put a finer point on something you just said, you're talking about, and I think everybody on this call, whether they've had a conversation with me and just in general, just kind of, grossly generalizing, I don't really see anybody that's like, that's not true. Some of the bigger box gyms, I want 5,000 members at $19.95 a month. Like, nobody, very few people, unless that's your business model, like you're renting equipment as a big box gym and supplementing that with personal training. It's a slightly different business model. I know we have a few of you guys on here, and nothing but love for you guys. It's fine. But I think most people would agree. I'd rather have 150, 250, somewhere in there, clients that are paying me a high ticket. They're super committed. They have a coach. That coach has a career, not just a fucking job, right? But another little finer point that I wanted to add is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. I've mentioned it on other calls, and it's this idea of like not just acquisitional efficiency, but like operational harmony and efficiency. And so this little graph that I just sketched out real quick kind of represents that. Like, yeah, you can run like real hard pushes followed by valleys, and big peaks followed by valleys and big peaks. That's how it works when you run like low ticket, high volume. You're always having to fight against churn. This is turbulent. The black line represents like, hey man, every time we add somebody, that person's going to stay for a long time. They're going to commit to themselves. The coach is going to develop a relationship, and we can expect to have like a very stable and harmonious business. Does that make sense? And like when you and I talk about these things, and even how we run FitBiz, right? We really try to have a very profitable but low stress business, right? I mean, it's the name of our group for a good reason. And I think that comes from harmony, and high ticket leads to harmony. So maybe you can start to talk a little bit about just like the bullet points of the differences in the way the sale is structured and works well for a low ticket and a high ticket sale.
Well, I can tell you right off the bat, for a low ticket sale, typically you are trying to play on somebody's impulse, right? Like an impulse purchase decision, right? Which is fine, because you'll be walking through a store and you see a shirt that you really like, and you're like, dude, I gotta have it, right? And you buy it, or all sorts of things like that, right? Yeah. High ticket isn't typically like that. That is a calculated decision by the consumer, and it takes a little bit more time to close that deal. But I can tell you this, I would much rather close 20 sales, or have to close 20 sales per month to grow, than have to close 60 sales for the exact same amount of revenue to grow. Even when you're talking about different kinds of sales, volume is still very, very important in the conversation.
The
total amount of sales you have to close, the lower the amount, always better in business, always, right? No one, very few people have successful businesses where they are closing 1,000 sales, or more per year, right? It's typically, then you're getting into like e-commerce and shit like that. It's very hard to have a successful business having to make a lot of deals, right? So I love high ticket for that reason. But yeah, I mean, it's all about finding the pain and building rapport, and walking them to that buying decision with you being the assistant buyer. You are not selling anything to them. Together, you two are making a decision, right? The best decision for this person. You are helping them purchase it, right? And so getting to the framework, I'm not going to go through the framework because we'll go through that one step at a time, but it starts with identifying what their problem is, obviously they have a need to fix something, or want to fix something, to clearly identify what that is, and then walk them to the fact that you are the solution to fixing that problem. And there's a lot of intricacies throughout that process. I'm excited to get into that because we teach in the mastermind. We go into detail on, we do like a 2-hour thing on just the sale, right? And our worksheet, it by default builds in a lot of the things that we don't really talk about. Like we don't talk about why some of the things in the worksheet works, but these are tried and tested like methods that we know to be true and to close high ticket sales, and we just put them in there and say follow this, right? But I think during the workshop we break it down and we explain why they work.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It feels like this is what I'm going to do the whole day. The finer point on that would be, in low ticket sales, to some extent, the deal or the offer or the ad is the sale. It's like, oh, pack of gum, 25 cents, throw it on the cart. 21 days, $21 sold. Like free, whatever, free hat if you sign up, free registration or free personal when in low ticket, it seems like the offer is the sale, whereas the relationship is the sale in high ticket, right? You want to create this relationship, demonstrate for that person that you can help them. Maybe the results are the sale, like sell them their own results, right? I hear Sam say that sometimes, and I really like that terminology. And what I would also say to add is I love the old phrase, convincing somebody is getting them to do what you want for your reasons, and persuading somebody to do something is helping them to do what they want for their reasons and not letting themselves get in the way or whatever that might be. And so persuading versus convincing, we always want to be persuasive. We don't want to be convincing, because when we convince clients, they leave soon. And when we convince clients, we own their results. And when we convince clients, they feel as if we pushed them in a direction that maybe they wouldn't have gone. But I don't know about you. I do know about you. I've met some of your clients and certainly met your coaches. But with me, I often have people thanking me for persuading them to get over the hump. Thank you. I was really, especially with the CrossFit, I was really nervous about coming to CrossFit, but oh my gosh, it was the best decision I ever made. If you look at the reviews from Joey's gym, if you look at the reviews from my gym, they're this long. They're not 5 stars with a sentence. They're this freaking long, because these are people whose lives have been changed by being persuaded to come in and change their lives, right?
Yeah, and I think that's why we believe so much in organic marketing and
Yeah.
being authentic with it, because at some point it's going to end up with just you and them in an office or wherever you sell.
Yeah.
And you want to close that deal, and you want to make it easy to persuade them, right? But if your marketing was very tactical in how you're very good at marketing, and you drive a lot of people into the business, it could add to operational complexity if they're very hard to close because
Yeah.
you weren't authentic with. And so we do that with FitBiz. If you guys see, all the ads we run are not to sell somebody, they're just to join our tribe, just to get into the group, right? And if they like it from there, they can raise their hand to work with us, right? It's very authentic. But once they're in the group, they know what we're all about. I mean, we're going live every single week. Jason's posting all sorts of value stuff in there. Like, they know who we are. And if they want to work with us, I think we should run it like that. And I think we do largely at the gym level, right? Where you become somebody that really is able to articulate and explain why you guys change lives and what you do. And so when it comes time to make that high ticket sale, it just becomes so much easier, right? Because you almost have people asking to work with you versus the other way around, which typically I would reserve for more low ticket stuff.
Yeah, and it can work, but we that's why we say organic leads first, right? I want to talk a little bit about the kind of the anatomy of the sale. So low ticket or even mid ticket to some extent, when the offer is the sale, you can do things like hard close people. You can do things like have group sales opportunities. You can do things, you can have potentially it's easier maybe to have order takers, not really salespeople, but like order takers who have somebody fill out, a form, and then they give you their credit card information, and that's it. When we talk about high ticket, it's not that you can't do all of those things, but it's much more difficult, right? Because what you're really doing is trying to generate a relationship, tap into that person's real inner desires for whatever the change is that you're trying to, engage them with. And so these are typically one-on-one sales. These are typically sales that they may not take a long time. Some of our best sales are 20 minutes, but you give them time to breathe. You don't move on through the way that you might in a presentation to 10 people. You don't move on through segments of the sale until that has been satisfied and like agreed upon, right? We build rapport until we feel like we're in a friendly conversation. We identify what they've done in the past until we know what they've done in the past, what they liked about it and didn't like about it. And we identify what their goals are until we feel strongly that, what their goals are both, important to them, and we can help to satisfy them, right? Anything else that you would think different about the anatomy of a low ticket to high ticket sale?
Yeah, I mean, more just how you present it to the customer, right? Whereas with a high ticket sale, like you're prescribing a personalized, solution for them, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're buying a high ticket car, right, like a Lamborghini, like the way that they sell that is going to be much different and they're really going to say, well, you need this in your life because of this, right? That's not how Toyota Camrys are sold, right?
Yeah.
They're like, what color do you like most? Do you know what I mean? Where like, so same thing with the gym sales. Like you should never be opening up a booklet with all of your prices on it. You should just never, ever do that if you're selling high ticket. So like at my gym, I make all of my trainers, and they get quizzed on this, know the prices for the transformation programs, so they are not just picking something out of a book. So if it's $69 a week, we know it's $300 a month. If you're prescribing a 6-month program, it's an $1,800 program with 20% off for prepaying. They need to know all of these prices, whether it's 3, 6, 9, 12, the most common programs. So when it comes time, because you got to remember, my coaches are selling these, right? At certain points. Mostly it's Jake, my sales manager and partner at the gym. But sometimes you want everybody at your gym to be prepared and know how to sell something, right? And so that's the only other thing I would say is how it's actually presented. If you have anything that resembles a menu, that's low ticket, right? And when you pay attention to anything high ticket that you are buying, just start paying attention to all of that. Anything that's $1,000 or more that you're going to purchase, just pay attention to how it's being sold to you, right? Barring mega brands like an Apple computer or something, but pay attention to like all of that stuff. Very rarely will you ever open up a book or something and pick it, right? Usually the salesperson is telling you the price, or they're sending you an invoice, or they are writing it on a piece of paper, but it's usually very custom and it's not surrounded by other prices, right? Like a price anchor, which is better for other stuff. That's all I got. Dude, I want to dig into like from the start to finish. I know you got other stuff, but I want to dig into the sale too, to get tactical.
I do too. I'm very excited. I wanted to make one point. The very clear one would be, if I'm just interviewed you and figured out all those things that Joey just mentioned that we've been talking about, and then I dust off the same exact program that I've sold 100 times in the last 100 times, like people can pick up on that. And so like, no, I don't recommend that you sell somebody on a 12-week blank or on a 24-week blank or on a 1-year paid in full. Like that might come out, but it should feel like you built it together.
Yes.
That's maybe where I would. And then the other point would be, yeah, I mean, a Camry is maybe $30,000, but I think it's high ticket relative to that thing. So like Ferrari is high ticket relative to cars.
Yeah.
And like custom, yeah. So let's dig in. Yeah, let's dig in. I just wanted to get those little 2 points out. Go ahead.
Yeah. For me, the sale always starts from the second the person steps foot in your gym. Now you can argue and say like it starts with the lead nurture process. That's fine, assuming because we're not going to go all the way back to the marketing, right? Let's talk about the sale. So they step into your gym. To me, that's where the first impression is being made, and you almost hit the reset button, right? Depending on however you lead nurtured or acquired them, right? This is your opportunity to change all of that. So if it's like automated messages and something got messed up or whatever it may be, right? Like once they're at your gym in front of you, your job is to take control of that situation, right? And so you can hit the reset button depending on whatever ad they saw, whatever. And you're like, hey, what's up? I'm Joey, super excited to meet you. And you start there. Now in the training, I go in depth, but what I want to talk about is it's very, very important to make sure that you have a welcoming environment and that you are prepared to receive that sale, receive that person. So some mistakes that I see people making are, okay, if somebody walks into your gym and they're just walking around looking at shit because nobody's up at the front or nobody's prepared or ready to receive them. And guys, like, I shouldn't need to tell you to be up there 15 minutes early. People arrive early all the time, especially when they're nervous for appointments, which we are in a business where they are, right? So you don't need a babysitter in these circumstances. You need to know that somebody needs to be up there early to receive them early with a ton of energy. Hold on a second, I got to switch my.
Oh no, I like it though. I like where you're going. While you're switching that over, I'm going to drop a little hack that I came up with Nick today. go ahead, go ahead.
Okay. So guys, I've seen this at other gyms before where a customer will be immediately frustrated. It's happened at my gym, right? When they walk into your place and they're not acknowledged, I get it frustrated with that. Where you're not acknowledged, you don't know what to do, and maybe because the sales guy is in a meeting already, or they're out on the floor, or whatever. But you're already putting yourself at a disadvantage to making that sale and building good rapport. Because you were not prepared, right? So I think it's very important to be ready to receive them and know their name, right? If you are going to ask this person for $300 a month, and assuming you have an $1,800 lifetime value, right? That's an $1,800 sale, right? That's high ticket in our business. Why wouldn't you take the time to know, hey, Susie, how are you doing? Right? Or, hey, are you Susie? If you can say somebody's name to them, I forgot what book I read that in, but when somebody hears their name, it gives an endorphin release, right? That makes them feel good. Like you actually took the time and energy to remember their name, right? And so all of these little things play an account, and I've seen it happen where the owner would be at the front desk talking to somebody else. Somebody new walks in. They won't break their conversation to greet that new person. They'll just keep continuing to be like, I'll be with you in a minute, right? Guys, this isn't a fucking Subway, right? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
go, you know what I mean? Like you have to know how to prioritize which conversation and which things to have at the time. And so I think it's very, very important. And that's something that I've always taken very seriously, being ready, being prepared, knowing their name, and welcoming them with a ton of enthusiasm, and then setting the expectations, right? So that's the last part I'll say before you end up in the office is I always set the expectation because they are nervous and they don't know what to expect, right? So I say, hey, Mrs. Jones, super excited that you could make it today. It was great chatting with you on the phone earlier. Anyways, today we're going to be talking all about our programs here, but more specifically your goals. So we're going to start off talking in my office. We might get a little bit of a body analysis just to see where you're at. If you feel necessary, we can jump out on the floor for 30 minutes just to see how you move. But anyways, we'll be heading to my office. I'll talk all about it then. Why don't you follow me, right? And so like what I did was I kind of broke down what's going to transpire over the next 30 to 60 minutes, right? And again, guys, it depends if you do anything out on the floor or if you don't, or if you give them an option. But then she's like, okay, I'm going to follow him to the office, and we might jump on a scale. So that way, when he asks me, I won't be surprised and be like, what? I have to weigh in, right? And then we might go out of the gym floor, but it really depends on me. If I want to see how I'm moving, and any opportunity I can to address any of those things, it's going to help me close a sale. So I set all of those expectations. And once I do, I say, okay, you ready? Follow me. Right. And to me, that is the if you can do it the same way every single time, like they have just and let their guard down, right? And now they're ready to have that conversation, right? And if you skip all of that and somebody walks in, you're like, oh, Susie, yeah, follow me, right? She's still nervous. You have not let her release that nervous energy. She has no idea what to expect, where you guys are going, if you're going to the fucking gym or the office, like, do you know what I mean? And so if you can do that consistently, you just release that shield that she has, and you're able to have that conversation.
Yeah, the things I'll add to that would be, for starters, I know you guys are busy. Some of you guys are a one-man show or a one-woman show, but we're not saying that you need to have a red carpet or a fancy, front desk person or anything necessarily fancy. Don't have a mess. It shouldn't look like a construction site. You shouldn't have a broken refrigerator right when you walk in the front door. You shouldn't have, things that are clearly not professional. I like to think about other experiences. When I walk into a fancy furniture store or clothing store, they're going to offer me a beer or a glass of champagne, which is ridiculous. It's 2 p.m. But like maybe you offer them a bottle of water. Did that cost you 39 cents? And it made them feel like, oh, this is different, right? You're making them feel at home. Nobody in the world is ever going to be upset that you stop talking to them to say hello warmly to somebody when they walk in the door. I did this when you were talking about it. Take up space. Show them that this is a place where they come in and get hugged. Don't hug them, but like show them that. especially if you see this. I say this before, I'll say it again. That is what I will say. If I see people like this, I will literally say, hey guys, do me a favor and uncross your arms. Because if you come in here like this, I promise you can prove me wrong. I promise that I can help you to fail at achieving your goals if you come in with this type of attitude. But I really literally won't even start. I do all the things you're talking about, but I won't even start until it's like, all right, baby, let's go. Because if you've ever had any conversation with me, or even now listening to this call, like, motherfucker, we're coming with energy and I'm here to like do something with you. And if you're not here to do the same thing, like, cool, that's fine, but we're not in the right conversation.
Yeah, man. And like Jason said, it's not a red carpet. Like, look, we're not doing anything. We're not asking you to do anything that requires money, that requires it requires effort. And that's where we're going to win in every aspect of our businesses against the bigger boxes that do have the amenities, that can show off the fucking saunas. Like, but what they don't have is that authenticity and effort. They'll never care. I shouldn't say that, but I would assume that the front desk person there does not care about the success of that person and the business as much as you do as an owner. So use that effort and showcase that effort with your preparation and your enthusiasm and all of that, making the gym clean. That's all effort, right? And so I think when you're going for a high ticket sale, don't cut any corners.
No, I couldn't agree more. So now you've got them in the room. What do you got?
Yeah. So guys, this is where I wish I could do a sale right now. But this is where the fun starts. And the first thing that I like to do is, and I say this in the training, is try to not make it seem like a doctor's visit, right? So you don't throw them on the scale right away. There's definitely a part for where the scale makes sense in that conversation, right? But when you throw them on the scale right away and you get their body fat, it feels like a doctor's visit, right? It feels like, okay, before I can prescribe anything, let me get your height and your weight. And no. Start that conversation, right? Start that conversation. And if you follow the sheet, there's 4 steps, right? There's the box 1, box 2, box 3, box 4, and in between there's the pie chart, the healthy lifestyle chart, right? So the first box is all about finding why they are there, and this is where you let them talk, right? And Jason, I know that we have been digging super deep into sales, and I can almost certainly say that if you are talking at least 75% of a high ticket sale, you are probably not going to get the close, right? Because you are overpowering them, right? Yeah. And especially in the beginning, in the first part of the sale, you need to let them talk and ask probing questions until you find the root cause as to why they're actually there. And do not be settled and do not move on until you've built rapport and found the root cause. If it takes you an hour and you never ended up moving on, that's fine, because you're not going to get the close anyways. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. I totally get what you're saying. And maybe I would flip that on its head and say, like, it won't take you an hour, because what happens is when you actually listen to what they're saying. So in your mind, you've created this script, or in your case, you may be using Joey and I's script, right? You've created this script and you're trying to preemptively know what their needs are so that you can provide them with overcomes or answer those, hypothetical problems that you assume they have. But what if you just shut your mouth and prompt them to tell you what it is they want? That might take 25 minutes. Instead of talking about your nutrition program and the macros and how many times a week you're going to check in, you guys have heard us talk about make sure you're selling the vacation, not the plane flight. But this is another way to look at it. Like, guys, if I come in and I say, hey, look, I'm really interested in develop my skills with a one-on-one coach, and I want to work out in a high energy group. Holy shit, that's a 30-second sale. Yeah, we do both of those things. Here's the price. That's great. Because so what I would say is definitely, you should be listening way more than you are talking. Forgot the word talking, which is ironic. And then also there's some tactics that we can help you with and that I can point you in the right direction with that are going to help you to better listen. And so we talk about things, and Sam has been working on this a lot. We talk about things like mirroring. When somebody says, I don't feel like myself anymore. You don't feel like yourself anymore. That's called mirroring. So then they're going to elaborate. Yeah, ever since I had kids, I just don't like what I see in the mirror. Okay, we're getting a little warmer. Now I'm going to mirror that again. What don't you like about what you see in the mirror? I used to always be the athletic person in the family, and I was always, active and on my feet. And now I don't even feel like I can be that good representative to my children. Okay, bingo, now we're there. And now we can label that. So it sounds like, that's what that sentence should start with. So it sounds like you don't feel like yourself and you want to get back there. Is that a fair assessment? Now, she has told you, or he, but in this case it was a she has told you in much more detail the thing that you needed to know. And now you have let her label herself as needing to get back to her former glory. So now for the rest of the conversation, she has given you permission to use that as leverage towards persuading her into this program. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And that's exactly how you want to have that conversation. So you can let them tell you why they're there instead of you trying to guess and you talking the whole time saying, do you want to lose weight? You know, and so before I move on from there, I personally like to always end with, okay, well, I'm sure you have a lot of other goals in life. We're all busy people. For this goal that we just talked about, getting in shape for your kids or whatever, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important would you say that goal is for you? And like you just very rarely will you not get a 9 or a 10, right? But if you end up getting like a 4 or a 5 or something like that, then you almost need to like tell them to come back when it's more important. Like that's what they're looking for out of a coach, or they'll justify to you, no, it really is probably higher now that they think about it. Right. And so I always get that number 9 or a 10 and I circle it, right? Because when it comes to the end, right, and we demonstrate how much of an impact this will have on multiple areas of their life, right? How could they not want to invest $69 a week to improve all of those areas when they're the ones that said, not me, it's probably the most important thing in their life right now, right? And so I move on from box 1 with that and say, okay, well, you know, if it's that important, you know, why haven't you fixed it already? Or what have you tried in the past? Right. And that's when we're digging into, which is box 2, their past struggles and what they've done. Right. And so that's a cool one, because that is when they will start telling you again, and you are just asking questions and writing everything down that they say. Well, have you ever tried any nutrition plans before? Yeah, I've done this. Well, how did you like it? Right. So you are collecting data. You are collecting as much information as you can that you're going to be able to use later on in the sale. Do not coach them at this point, right? Do not coach them. Do not say, oh, well, yeah, Jenny Craig doesn't work because what you really like, shut up. You know what I mean? Let them talk. Don't coach them in box 2. There will be a chance for you to prescribe the program to them and tell them why what they listed in box 2 did not work, but this is not the time for that. Right. And so your goal is to figure out what they've done in the past, whether it was a challenge, whether it was working with the one-on-one trainer, whether it was whatever it may be. And you are collecting this information, but again, letting them talk and asking them, how did you like that? Or how did that make you feel? Or was that effective? You know, well, if that worked, how come you're not doing that right now? I always ask that question. Well, if that worked so well, how come you're here and you didn't go back to that? Right. Don't be afraid to offend anybody. Like, you're going to be their coach. Like, you guys are going to have some conversations together about, you know, not making excuses and all sorts of shit. Don't be afraid to start that relationship at the sale.
So to 2 points about that, what you're doing there is twofold. Number 1, they might not have ever really thought about these things. They might not realize how valuable this is to them. They might be, and that's what that wheel is so good at in a different way. But if somebody says like, yeah, I did personal training, I did Nutrisystem, and I did this and I did that and I did the other thing. How much time, I mean, we're introspective about the fitness business, but are they? Do they even really know why they quit that personal trainer? Do they really know? And they probably do, but do they actually articulate it to themselves? And so what you're doing is you're letting them build their own case for why you should get the program sold to them that you want. And number 2, you're starting to challenge, and this is why challenging them in those situations is so important. You're starting to challenge what they think a fitness program is, especially somebody that's never paid high ticket. So somebody walks in the door and they've never worked with a personal trainer for a long period of time, and they've always been at a Globo gym, or they've always been at a boot camp, or whatever it might be, and they're paying, let's say, under $100 a month. You're now actively challenging their beliefs, and they're the ones that are feeding you the answers for why those things were insignificant or insufficient rather. And so those two things are crucial, but they can't come from you. They have to come from them, where you go, wow, sounds like you really didn't get much value out of that $60 Globo Gym. All right, well, what about that? And you move on. And now you have just nothing but fruit to pick at the end of this conversation when you start to see these objections, or when they start to see how much the program is going to cost.
Exactly. And when it comes from them, like, yes, you can say those things and label them and get them to agree. Like, yeah, you're right. You're right. But when it comes from them, it's so much more powerful. So I wanted to take this out, since we're visual, or we're talking through it. But guys, this is the sales sheet that we're talking about. Sorry, there, now it's in focus. So the step one was those goals, and step two is the past struggles and experiences, right? So once you feel comfortable, like, and you've figured out everything they've done before and what they didn't like about it, what they did like about it, at that point, you want to go into the wellness wheel, right? And so this is something in particular that we don't break down too much in the training. We just say to use it. But in the mastermind, we break down all the psychology behind this and why it works so well. And nobody else is using this, guys. There's not like another guru teaching it. I didn't get this from Russell Brunson. Like, this is through doing thousands of sales. Do you know what I mean? Like, having this conversation thousands of times, because before 2018, like, I was doing all the sales at my gym, right? That's 8 years worth of sales. You know, and it's a lot of sales, just like some people watching this call. Well, I found myself being able to articulate how the decision that they're about to make is going to impact a lot more than just their body, right? And so this makes it easy for you to articulate that as well. And so that's why we go onto the wellness wheel. And I always ask if it's okay if we do an exercise. I say, hey, you know, I'd like to do an exercise with everybody that's looking at making some bigger changes in their life. Would it be cool if we do that exercise right now? It'll take about 5 minutes. No one's going to tell you no. Be like, great. Okay. Well, on a scale of 10, you know, I have this thing in front of me, right? And I am going to ask you a couple questions. And all you have to do is, you know, respond to me on a scale of 1 to 10, kind of where you're at. Okay. And so then we start off with the first one. So Mrs. Jones, like, I think I know, but on a scale of 1 to 10, like, where would you rate your medical health, right? Like, how good you feel medically, right? And so for them, that might be thing like sleep apnea, if they talked about it, or diabetes or high blood pressure. What we're talking about, medical health here. And they might probably say anywhere from like 5 to, who knows, depending on who you have in front of you, but it won't be a 10. Right. And then we'll talk about, okay, where would you rate your relationship or significant other? Right. And so we're going to go through each one of these, and there's 8 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8 of them. Right. And so typically what we will find in all people, right, is that they are not well-rounded. So the point of this wheel, the point of any wheel, is not to be big or small, but to be very round, well proportioned and rounded. And studies have shown that the more well-rounded somebody's life is, the happier they are, period. Right? So it doesn't matter if they have these peaks under body image or whatever, but they have a complete valley under financial. Wow, you look great, but you can't afford to buy anything, right? Or your financial is super high, but your fun, hobbies, and social life is a 0. Like, you have nowhere to spend that money and nobody to spend it with, right? And so that's how you find these people are fucking miserable that have seemingly achieved everything. You know, how could they be miserable? Well, a different area of their life has severely been impacted in some way or shape or form. Our job here is not to solve all of their problems, but to illuminate the fact that having a transformation or health and fitness is able to improve many more areas of their life than they probably think or thought coming into this, right? So, like, think about it. If you get into the best shape of your life, right? And you become healthy by eating foods that we know are better to fuel your body than a bunch of junk. Let's say you make that change. You start eating very healthy foods and you work out very consistently, building muscle, losing fat, getting your hormones and endorphins and all of the natural stuff. Do you think that's going to improve your medical health? Yes. Do you think it's going to help improve your relationship or significant other? Who knows? But it might help your chances at getting a relationship if you currently do not have a relationship, right? Family and friendships. That's one of those things that we usually see as higher off the bat. But it might help you make friends if you don't have any friends. Financial. Do you think that if you were in tip-top shape, you would perform better at work? Right? Yeah, yes or no. If you perform very good at work, will that have any kind of impact on your finances? Maybe it won't. Maybe it will. Do you think your boss is passing you up on raises because you're morbidly obese? Some people think that, right? Do you think they would stop doing that? Right? What about body image and confidence? Do you feel like you'd be more confident if you looked amazing in all of your clothes, right? And you took off your clothes and you loved what you saw in the mirror? Do you think that would improve? Fitness and ability, that's another one. Do you feel like you would be able to do everything that you want to do throughout your day without being limited by your fitness level, right? So could you go hiking with the kids? Could you start doing this back? Do you feel like that would open some new doors for you, right? That you'd love to do? Or fun, hobby, and social life. Like, do you feel like you would particularly be able to have more fun or maybe start new hobbies? Maybe you've always wanted to play beach volleyball, but you just physically couldn't even jump. So it's like nobody would want you on their team. Like, do you see now how many areas this 6-month transformation or whatever, I don't use the labels yet because we haven't given that to them, but do you see how much this could impact your life? Now, when I'm going over this, I don't necessarily use do you see how much making this decision can help you, because we haven't got to that part yet. But what I'm doing now is I'm drawing a dot. If you can see these aren't lines. They say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm drawing a dot. And at the end of asking all my questions, I will connect my dots. And chances are their wheel is not going to look like a wheel. It is going to look like some weird shape that is not round at all. And that's where I tell them, okay, thanks for letting me do that exercise. Typically what we've found after doing this for years is that the people that are the most well-rounded are the most happy, with their lives, right? Which is typically what we like to try to do, is create fit and healthy lifestyles with people that really, really are happy, and we improve their quality of life, right? We're not going to have you do anything that is going to lower your quality of life, like getting rid of all the foods that you enjoy, right? We're all about improving your quality of life, and we find that people that have the best quality of life are very well-rounded. So thanks for doing that exercise. I think now what we can do is go on to the next part, where we're going to talk about which program I would recommend for you. But before we do that, I did want to get your weight and your body fat percentage so I know your starting point. I have a good idea of where your ending point might be because you told me, but I don't know where we're starting, right? So if you're okay with it, I'd like to jump on the Fitbit or the InBody and get some preliminary numbers, and then we'll come back in here and we'll talk a little bit more about what your readout says, and which programs or which program we might have that'll work for you, or something like that. Do you know what I mean? So we're going through the wellness program or the wellness wheel, and from there, that's the first time that we kind of break the chain of talking, and we go into a body fat analysis. And there's a specific reason why we do it then, right? And it's because now it makes sense in the conversation to do it then. You do believe that you can help them, but you can't recommend a program yet because you have no idea where they're starting, right? And so how do you know where they're starting? Well, because you're about to go find out. In the second part of doing that, and like I said, I found out that not everybody was printing off the sheets, right? Which, guys, it's in the training, but in the part of the training where I say, hey, print off a bunch of these sheets, you should do that part and not just hang it next to your scale, because what it allows you to do is then have the body fat percentage sheet, which I have over there, and you can circle their current body fat percentage, right? And then circle where you want them to be, which would be in the athletic range. and then draw a line and write down minus 10% or whatever the gap is and give it to them. Right now, you've labeled them as a high risk body fat percentage or above average body fat percentage, and you've handed it to them, right? But you're about to propose something that involves them losing X amount of body fat, right? Not just weight, but X amount of body fat. And so how did you come to that conclusion? How did you come to that number? Well, it's right here, right? So now they're labeled as having a high body fat percentage, maybe even high risk. And no matter if they sign up with you or not, that is not going anywhere, right? That label is stuck to them until they decide to fix it, or they don't care, one of the two, right? And so that's very important for you to be able to close the sale, is because it gets you to your final step, which is step 3, which is the program you recommend. I know a lot to digest there because I talked for a while.
Yeah, I got 10 things from a long time ago. So one of the things about the wheel is you take that person's 9 or a 10, how important this thing is. And you're showing them how they thought they were coming in for one thing, but you're showing them how they actually are coming in for 8 or 9 things. And I think that's just like you're taking a dollop of peanut butter and you're spreading it across a bunch of different pieces of toast, right? And so like that's the big thing, is if you think about your customer's attention like a wallet, you're putting it in different categories of the wallet. So is it important to you to have more time with your kids? Is it important to you to feel confident at work? Is it important to you to feel confident with members of the opposite sex? Is it important to you? All those different things. As far as how we get to the rest of it, I agree with all of that. I think that's all what we have seen is working very well in our gyms as well as the gyms in the cohort. So let's talk about the close. What do you, where do we go from here?
So now what we're going to do is transition from them mostly talking to now you mostly talking, right? And here is where you want to become the authoritative professional that has done this many, many times before. And you don't want to give them any options, right? You want to come at it like a doctor does, right? If you go into a doctor with a broken arm, there's not going to be multiple things for you to choose from, right? Well, we have boot camps for this amount and we have yoga classes and we have private training. It's like, no, dude, like, what do I need to do to fix this problem? You need a cast. We need to mend this. We need to pin it. You need to cast, right? That's it. You know what I mean? There's no negotiation. I'm the professional here. I've been doing this for a very long time. This is what you need to do. It doesn't matter what you think, right? That's exactly how a doctor would approach it. And we want to approach it the same way, right? So it doesn't matter what you offer, and it doesn't matter what they've done before. What matters is that you are the professional that has tons of experience and you've seen this problem before and you've fixed this problem before. And this is what they need to do to fix that problem, right? And so that's where you kind of go into the close, where you explain more to them about how you do things, and you are trying to get them to affirm with you that it is something that they're going to need, right? So as an example, let's say, well, Mrs. Jones, you're at 30% body fat right now. It sounds like you need to get to 20% body fat. Is that about right? And she'll be like, yep. It sounds like you want to lose about 40 pounds. Is that right? Yep. Okay. It sounds like you're going to need help with your nutrition, which we absolutely do here. We'll give you a private nutrition coach. See how I'm kind of sprinkling it in there? We give you, I'm not listing off all of our things. I'm sprinkling it into the conversation. Well, you've been successful with this before in the past, right? So we're definitely going to do private nutrition for you. Does that sound like something that you think would work in a program? Yep. Okay. Well, it sounds like you're going to need to work out, right? We've talked about this, and your body fat percentage is high, which means your muscle mass is low. So we're going to have to totally do some workouts. You ready to work out? Yep. So what we're trying to do is get these positive yeses, because when we get to the end of it, and you're going to say something like, wow, Mrs. Jones, I've done this a lot before. And to get from where you're at now, the 250 to 200 and low 10% body fat, it's going to take us about 6 months, right? And the first month, what we're going to do is we call it conditioning, right? The conditioning phase. You're probably a little deconditioned right now. She'll be like, yep. Like, yeah, you haven't been eating healthy. You haven't been working out, right? So we're going to get your body conditioned. That's going to be the first, 4 weeks. Okay. After that, we're going to be in the fat loss phase, right? Because your goal is mostly to lose fat and build lean muscle. That's going to take us about 12 weeks. Okay. So now we are going to lose the majority of the weight in those 12 weeks. And finally, in the final 4 weeks, I'm going to show you how to maintain this for the rest of your life so you don't need to rely on me. Okay. And that's about a 4-week process to learn and build new habits, which is how we get to about 24 weeks or a 6-month program to get you from where you're at now to where you want to be. Okay. And so it's going to be $69 a week for this 6-month program, right? And the first 7 days are going to be on the house just to make sure it's the absolute perfect fit for us. And I'm going to pair you up with Coach Eric because he's done this many times before, and I really think you guys are going to click. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to schedule you for Saturday or Sunday, whichever makes more sense for you, to start off with that nutrition and goal setting consultation. Sound fair enough? Right. And so what I do is somewhere in there, I sprinkled the price and I assume closed it. Right. So what I'm trying to get her to decide is if she's going to do Saturday or Sunday, right? One of those two. I'm not even trying to get her to talk about the price. If she has an objection to the price, she'll bring it up. Right. But I've already overcome one objection by telling them if it's not a perfect fit, right, you just let me know because the first 7 days are in the house. Right. Or the first 7 days are free, which is if we're closing somebody on a free 7-day trial. Guys, I promise you, if you do this process and you have this conversation like this every single time, you are going to close at least 50% of them. Right. So you prescribed a 24-week program, a 6-month program. Right. And you charge $69 a week. Right. And you explained why you prescribed it. And they gave you all of these affirmations that they agree with it. Right. The last thing you want them to do is get one more head nod. Okay. Yeah, let's pick Saturday. Right. And so essentially that is how the sale works. If you can see, I talked uninterrupted. You do not want them to interrupt you at any point during this talk because you are prescribing something to them. Okay. And by the time you get end, you shut up. You get to the end, the Saturday, Sunday, you shut up and you let them think. You let them think about what you just said. And hopefully they don't say anything about the price. They say something about the scheduling of that, right? Now, if they do say something about the price, that's where you use the objection overcomes that we have in the training. And you have things that you're armed with, right? And we're assuming that 50% of them are going to object, right? That's why we're only closing 50% of them or 75% of them on the trial. But you have things at your disposal. You have the 10 out of 10 that they said it was important. You have all the areas of life that it's going to improve. You have all of these weapons, right, and objection overcomes to hopefully shift the narrative from the price to the value. There's two things in any sale, right? Number one is the price. That's what they're actually paying you. But number two is the value. That's what they're receiving. And you want to show them the massive gap between what they're paying you, the price, and the value, what they're actually receiving, right? And so hopefully you're able to articulate that and get the close. But that's how I transition into the final step. That's how I go through it. That's how I pitch it. And that's how I end it with the AB close, which is setting them up with Eric or whoever it may be. Now, if you guys are training them yourself, you can open up your own schedule. But yeah, that's how I do it.
So the things I would pull away from that are kind of to make them a little more succinct would be, number one is the two things that are going to help you most is number one, your own conviction. And then number two, don't stop selling until there aren't objections. The best objection to overcome is to sell through until you feel that there aren't going to be overcomes, right? And so I'll address the first one first. Your conviction. When you give them the pitch and you do so with confidence, and then you can shut up calmly and wait for them to say yes or no, or wait for them to say yes, that comes through conviction, and conviction comes through like you really thinking through like, yes, this absolutely is a great value for that customer. Yes, I've changed people's lives already dozens of times, hundreds of times, whatever, using this model. I believe in my own service that I'm selling will be much more valuable to this person than what they're paying. You need to know that in your fucking bones, because when you have that conviction, it's easy. I mean, somebody like Joey or myself, or many of you on the call, like when somebody challenges whether or not your gym can help them change their life, you could probably, if you're an asshole, laugh in their face with your conviction. Like, no, you don't understand. I do this for a living. I've done it for years, and we're the best in the business. Like, you want to get to that point. That's going to help you to be as confident and convicted as you need to be in the sale. And then the second piece is, you will develop a feel for the thing that is important to that person, whether it's been from the revealing questions or whether they can kind of tell, that's why I'm worried about price, things like that. And then that's why you want to sort of fill in the gaps before and address those overcomes that you see coming before they actually become overcomes, because you can smooth them over easier if they're not vocalized at the end. So in other words, if somebody has a price objection and you can just feel it coming, you addressing it early on how they're going to receive more value than what they put in and why they're going to be happy with the price they're paying is going to be easier than after you make the pitch and say, and the price is this, and then they say, I can't afford it. Now you have to backtrack. You're on your heels. You actually have to fight that. And there are great objection overcomes for that. But that is a moment where you're already on your heels. Whereas when you're here, you're on the attack mode and you can address that overcome before they ever vocalize it. And that may just smooth it right into a signed contract, right? So the very last thing, I got a hard out. I have a call at the end of the hour here.
Yep.
But the last thing I wanted to address was just how do we master sales? And the only thing that I really wanted to bring to the table, and maybe you have a couple others, well, I guess role play, is record your calls. If you're watching this call right now, you have heard myself, Joey, and probably dozens of other people to tell you to record your calls and your appointments. And if you're not doing it, just know it's not a joke. It's not something we're just saying. It's not something that we think might help you. I mean, if it's just you and nobody else is doing sales for you, record your calls and listen to them, because when you're not in that moment and you don't have those endorphins rushing and you'll be like, oh my God, I let her off the hook right there. That was so obvious. I mean, we've always done this. I've done it in my sales teams. We've always done it here. But just recently, we've been doing a lot of digging in on the sales process, kind of in preparation for things like this. And it's just a black and white difference when you can sit there and pull bullet points out of like, when such and such says this, I should have said that. Instead, I said this, and that's where the conversation turned. But when you don't have that emotion high and you don't have those endorphins rushing and your adrenaline going, it's just so much easier. You know, all the stuff that Joey's gone over and I've added to it during this call, it's going to be difficult for you to necessarily perfectly walk that path when you're in the moment, but it'll be easier if you go back and pay attention to what's happening in those conversations.
Yeah, it's like an MMA fight. Like, dude, during the fight, you don't know what the fuck happened. You know what I mean? You're just in the moment, but then you watch it back and you're like, ah, man. Same deal, guys.
Yeah. Great. Well, if that's it, Joey, I think this was an awesome one. As always, this is one of my favorite things that we do together here and a highlight of my week. So guys, if you have any additional questions about sales or how to sell high ticket, leave them in the comments and Joey and I can address them one-on-one.
Last thing I'll leave you guys with is make sure your staff knows this sale too, especially your trainers, because they'll be renewing using this same exact framework. Make sure they know it. And the second thing is don't go for the paid in full. That is on the contract, right? So after you get a yes, then you pull out the contract and that is where you go for the paid in full. If you don't know what I'm talking about, rewatch the training. So thanks, guys. Next week, Thursday, we're out of here.
All right.